Okay to start. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Richard O'Brien. I am the newly minted Chief Inclusion and Belonging Officer here at Northeastern University. I will introduce our Chancellor, Ken Henderson, and then I will rejoin with a few remarks afterwards. Chancellor Henderson.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Richard. And welcome, everyone. Richard said he's newly minted, but as you all know, he's been wanting the job for, it must be like over a month now. So that Northeastern time, you know, that is not new anymore. So we're expecting results right away. So, well, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining today. It's an absolute pleasure for me to do the welcome for the innovation, the Inclusive Impact Innovation Showcase, or I3 Awards. As many of you know, we started this, a year and a bit ago, last January 23. We kicked this off with the idea to really catalyze interdisciplinary collaborative projects that ideally, and this is a key, could be replicated and scaled across the university network. So great to do a project, but we're really looking for projects that can make an impact across as many populations, as many individuals as possible. When we launched the effort in 23, we supported 5 projects selected from 59 applications, which was great. And many of you probably were along with me, joined us last year. We were actually in the Cabral Centre where we heard from and saw some of the impact. So happy to do it again in this year. So this time out, we had 69 submissions, which is great. We're trending in the right direction, and we've supported 4 projects that you hear about today. And they range from Oakland to London and everything in between. So really looking forward to hearing and seeing the impact of these awards. I want to just acknowledge the effort that people have put into this work. So all the individuals that put the awards together, those that have been funded, those that haven't, found other mechanisms to ensure the work moves forward. This, of course, is a key area for us at the institution, and it's only through innovation, participation, that we're going to continually improve and build this community and inclusive belonging that we desire at the institution. So this program is a real example of something, people stepping forward and putting their time and energy and effort into building the community. So deeply appreciate everybody's efforts. So I'm going to pass back to Richard to do the introductions and to lead on to the programs. I will have to apologize. I'll have to leave because I have another commitment I have to go and see, but I see it's been recorded, which is fantastic. So I look forward to learning more in due course. So with that, thanks everybody for your participation, for the work done, and I'll pass back to Richard.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Henderson. I really appreciate those words to the group. And many of you are familiar with me through my leadership at the John D. O'Brien African American Institute, and it's exciting for us to be hosting the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, this second showcase of the Inclusive Impact Innovation Fund projects. These ventures hold promise for transformation from the ground up, a transformation coming directly from the community members of Northeastern. Awardees, you responded to the call for proposals, applied for funding support for your teams to implement your projects, and the proposed initiatives from the group collaborations that received the first round of funding and the proposals that you'll present today will set the stage for future success. Because as each group successfully implements their program and demonstrates how their work can be done, you're setting a template and demonstrating how it is possible to contribute to moving the global network toward becoming more inclusive, to increase the sense of belonging. Others will be able to look at your data, your results, and see what's possible. Today, we're pleased that a greater number of your colleagues will learn about your work and to be inspired to build on that work. We are all eager to hear from you on what you're about to share with us about the inception, implementation, and the potential impact that your projects may have. So with that being said, we'll move to presentations.
All right, I guess I'm going to go ahead and start unless there's an introduction that's coming. All right, great.
Yes.
Well, thank you. This is Allison Bauer. I'm one of the 4 faculty leads on the You Belong Here project, which is recognizing students as experts on belonging, with the idea of using the student experts to help create faculty learning modules. You can go ahead and advance. Just quickly, I'll show you who our student experts are and our faculty leads. I'll provide a little bit of background on how we got here, what created the frame of reference for us to be able to move the project forward. I'll hand it over to my colleague who's going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in terms of the work, and then bring it back to me and I'll talk about our sustainability. So you can go ahead and advance. You can go ahead and advance again. The project was really pulled together utilizing the voices of students. I don't have time to introduce each of them to you, but what you see are our student experts here. They range from undergraduate students to Masters of Public Health students, as well as a PhD student. They represent a variety of different races, ethnicities, first-generation college students, students that were raised outside of the country, and students for whom English is even a second language. So we have a pretty broad array. They also are students who are going into the medical field, as well as into research and into public health administration. You could go ahead and advance. Here are the 4 faculty, 3 of us in Boston, 1 in Oakland. Again, I'm associate teaching professor, as well as associate chair. Jen Evans, who's not here presenting, is an assistant teaching professor. Sam Garbers, who will be joining, is the other presenter, is the head of our undergraduate program and a professor, full professor. And then Katrina Jamie heads our public health and health science work out in Oakland and is also an associate professor. You can go ahead and flip. So this is the meat of where this came from for us. The Social Justice Steering Committee has been around for about 3 or 4 years now, and it was created actually during COVID in a time to try to address some of the inequities that we were seeing for students. And back in 2021, we did our first roundtable discussion where we brought students together and asked them, an array of students, different backgrounds, and asked them questions that they could they were the experts for faculty. They could share what it was like for them in the classroom, what was working to make them feel like they were being seen, being heard, that their identities were recognized, and that they were being addressed in a classroom, both in terms of content, but then also in terms of context. We held a second roundtable in 2023. You can actually go ahead and advance. So here's the mission of the Social Justice Steering Committee, again, about how we integrate this into the content for our students in our department, but also includes making sure they're feeling included and seen in the classroom. I was mentioning that we had the student-led roundtable in 2021. We then replicated it in 2023. You can go ahead and advance the slide. And you can see here the flyer that we created for the roundtable that we did in 2023. And during the roundtable, now that's being our second time through, we really worked hard to capture the information that the students were sharing, and we debriefed with the students afterwards. And in having the debrief and in looking at the material, it became clear to us that a once a year or once every other year roundtable wasn't sufficient to be able to address the issues that were surfaced. And then in talking in more depth, we realized we could take this material and we could actually turn it into a much richer opportunity to be able to train faculty and create a better opportunity, a better environment and opportunity for learning for students if we were able to use this material to train faculty going forward. And that was the impetus for the You Belong Here project. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague to pick it up from here.
Great, thanks. On the next slide, I'm Sam Garbers. I'm the undergraduate program director in health sciences and public health. I want to talk about some of the underlying frameworks that guide how we're doing this work. As Professor Bauer mentioned, we really have been involving students along the way around the importance of belonging, but we're taking some intentional steps here to center students as experts, which means that we're using backwards design. We're starting out by articulating what are the end goals? How do students define what belonging looks like? Use that as the starting point for our work and figure out how do we get there. We're using techniques that are participatory, so our students are recognized as experts and they are paid as experts for this work. All of our meetings really emphasize transparency in our process and the extent to which we document shared work or subgroup work. Accountability, so actually pulling together our expectations and putting them in writing around who is doing what and how work moves forward. And then principles of community engagement. So taking the time, particularly in the beginning, to establish trust, to prioritize, recognize, and respect diversity in the group and mobilize our strengths. So what did this look like on the next slide here? We started out on the far left in that blue circle by developing a team charter. We talked about what were our priorities, our guiding principles, what we were good at, how we wanted to work, how we could keep ourselves accountable. And then we started with the backwards design work, working on defining belonging. We're operationalizing it. We're going to, once we've operationalized it, we're going to map learning assets to domains. All those 4 things have happened up to now. I'll talk what our next steps are and then show you some examples of how this work is proceeding. In our next meeting, we're going to be prioritizing what our learning domains are because we've generated a lot of ideas, not all of which can move to the production phase. And we'll be working with students and other folks across the institutions to develop content and then disseminate it and evaluate the impact, not just the process, but also the learning outcomes. So on the next slide, let me show you what do I mean by defining. So in our work, or shared work, it involves lots of mind mapping and lots of Miro boards and shared work where students identify what it means, what a definition of belonging is. And I think Professor Bauer sort of started talking about this, but being acknowledged, just acknowledge that your presence in the classroom is sort of like the base. That's the basis. How does increasing belonging improve from there? Being seen, being accepted, being welcomed, being valued, that moving up this chain of belonging and how our project can get faculty where they need to be. So on the next step, what we've started doing is taking these dimensions from the definition. So for instance, what does it mean to be seen? Our group has been working together to operationalize it, that they feel reflected in the examples and the content. Then our next step has been to link this to learning assets. There are really wonderful assets around decolonizing syllabi. So our learning modules will include self-assessment checklists for this, how to access diverse stock photos, and other existing resources around creating inclusive classrooms, content, problematic assumptions. I'll show another example on the next slide. So welcome and accepted. Again, that's the next level up. Students working through this definition, operationalizing and identifying the need to provide an open space for all students, not for some students, but for all students to share their opinions. Training faculty, how can you build inclusive policies? So our modules will include resources and training on developing inclusivity policies, scripts, processes for setting one-on-one appointments beyond office hours, which is like, how can we train faculty and provide resources for them to implement these strategies so that so that there is an open space. So on the next slide, as I mentioned, we're going to moving through prioritization using a Delphi method, working with colleagues, Cattler, hopefully Edge, working with the school-wide, the Bouvet school-wide DEIB committees for dissemination and then evaluation. I think the next slide, I'd like to hand it back over to Allison to talk about.
And just to give you that 1 minute warning, sorry.
Terrific. So our evaluation will focus on the outcomes, which I'm just going to skip from there because I think it's important to go next to talk about sustainability, right? That this is not going to be a one-off. So on the next slide, Allison, if you'd like to review how we're going to make this something that lasts.
Yeah, just to pick it back up, we don't want this to be a one-off. We are our goal is that while we have these students, undergraduate and grad students, working with us and co-creating, we are also planning, one, for this to be sustainable and something that is continued to be used as the creation's happening. We recognize students move through. We're already recruiting for this fall's roundtable and starting to identify students who could continue to work on the project with us, so that there's an ongoing collaboration. Our hope is that we will then create training modules that will be piloted within our department initially, but then disseminated through the DEI college lead and the DEI offices to other places on campus. And we also want this to be something that we're sharing externally, and we're happy to report that we've already had the project accepted at the American Association in College and Universities conference under the title "You Belong Here, a student-informed inclusivity training for faculty in higher ed." And so our hope is that in addition to being a model for within Northeastern, that it becomes a model that can be replicated at universities around the country, again, with our hope that we're continuing to center the student voice, because what's needed at other universities may be different than what's needed here, depending upon that student body, but we'll be able to share how we went through this process, and then that could be replicated at those places. And with that, if you just flip to the next slide, you'll see that this is our current team that's working on this project right now, our 5 students who we're happy to have their information shared, as well as the 4 faculty that are working on the project. We love working with the students. They are bringing a lot of richness to this because this is really about them, and they feel a lot of empowerment that things that they've identified, they're being able to help to put together the content that's going to train faculty that'll make it better for those students who come after them.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We will now move on to questions. If anyone has any questions for this project team, please add them in the Q&A section. And if you're a presenter and have mic access and have a question, feel free to unmute yourselves.
There are currently no questions in the Q&A. Please feel free to ask them.
We're also very reachable by email. So if people have, after you've had a chance to review the rest of the presentations, we're happy to chat more about how we're doing this or what we're seeking to do.
There's
Richard
a hand.
O'Brien.
Yeah.
First, I want to congratulate you all. This is wonderful. I think it's blazing a trail with regards to student and faculty collaboration on this issue, and I think it's critical. What's your sense with regards to scalability of this effort and how we may be able to, expand it across the network?
I mean, I'll maybe I'll take a first shot at that. So
Sure.
Allison Bauer mentioned that working with the sort of college DEIB team is a good opportunity. Actually, Sean Mohammed is in our department, and we've already sort of spoken to him. I know that the B of DEIJB is an area of emphasis for Northeastern moving forward. With the availability of Canvas, the possibility of disseminating this beyond here. Our goal is not to build something that's UVA specific or even Northeastern specific, but is better than other institutions' efforts at belonging, training to improve belonging, because we have students as the experts, right? Instead of sort of saying, here's our training on microaggressions, let's disseminate this. Actually really focusing on what do students think faculty need to be able to do, and developing content that can be disseminated online, that could be easily organized through Canvas, that could actually be built in together for future models such as badge, right? Micro-credentialing badges, and incorporated within a platform that's used across many institutions. So we really have our eye on thinking about what makes this different from existing resources, and also how do we increase its impact. And the AACU presentation, I think, is an important piece. So we have a couple other abstracts also.
Yeah, Sam did such a great job answering. I don't want to take up more time. I would just say, having been here now, I'm going on 6 years, and having done training previously that has been provided to us by Northeastern, I can say there's lots of unoccupied space for much better trainings out there than what I've experienced. So,
Message received.
We have a question from Courtney Martinez. Thanks for sharing your work. This is excellent. What challenges or surprises have you experienced?
I mean, we talked about the intentionality of backward design, of community engagement, doing work, following the process of the work and the principles behind the process of the work faithfully requires extra work. Sometimes meetings can get really chaotic when we're all working in the same document.
I was going to say, in short, the short answer to that is the work is messy. That's the challenge. It's messy, but we've had a couple of the students say, that was a great meeting. The faculty are like, oh my God, we're leading them. It feels like we're the bar scene in Star Wars. And then they're like, that was a great meeting, because I think they like the messy because they feel like they're really getting to engage with the work. But it's a challenge, because to do the work the way that we've designed it is hard and complicated and messy.
No disagreement, but just hard work and a lot of, it's like making mud pies. It really is, rolling up our sleeves to do the work. It's been actually enjoyable.
Yeah.
And we have another question in the Q&A from Micah Morikawa. As a staff member, I feel like many staff could benefit from this lens as well. I know the frameworks are quite curated for faculty, but do you think it is possible to add frameworks for staff?
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%.
I also just want to acknowledge, absolutely, I think when, Professor O'Brien talks about what the scalability, that's certainly something that we're thinking about. I just want to acknowledge that a couple of our student experts are on with us today. So I want to take a minute to thank them for their really incredible work and wisdom.
And I'll just note, to add further to that, about the staff question, is that a number of the student experts actually do work at the university in some capacity. So they would be able to perhaps, again, as experts, bring that lens of how might this be translatable to staff in a way that's different than faculty as well, because they have experience working on campus.
Excellent. Well done.
Great. Well, thank you for the support.
and our next presenters.
Julia, are you on? Let me see. Oh, I think. Let me give you mic and camera access. It doesn't seem like you have it for some reason. Okay, you should have access to speak now. You're muted still.
Right. I think that I've managed to unmute myself now. Okay. So hello, everybody. Before I start the presentation, I'd like to just sort of apologize in advance that I've got a really bad voice because I had a really sort of bad cold last week and it's affected my voice. Luckily, this week we have no teaching, but it may affect this presentation. So if I suddenly have to drink some glass of water or something, please bear with me, okay? So my name is Julia Hofweber, and I work as an assistant professor in cognitive psychology at NU London. So everybody in this project is based on the campus in London. But of course, we'd like everything to be applicable NU-wide. And the topic of our project, or the title, is the scaffolding function of AI in student populations with diverse needs. So I'm going to start sort of taking apart that title, what we mean by that. Could we please move along the slide? Thank you. So our goal is to really investigate the potentially beneficial role of artificial intelligence. I know many of us sort of frown upon artificial intelligence, but in some ways it can also have benefits. And we are particularly looking at this in the context of higher education students with what we call diverse profiles. And what we mean with that is differences that may affect their communication, academic performance, time management, and well-being. So what do we mean with diversity? We define this notion of diversity very much in the spirit of the meaning of the word quite broadly, but we do focus on two aspects that may affect academic performance. Firstly, neurodiversity, ranging, sort of incorporating a wide sort of range of phenomena, ranging from autism spectrum disorder to ADHD, mental health issues, or dyslexia. We're also going to focus on linguistic diversity, specifically students whose first language is not English, or who have some sort of sensory differences affecting their communication abilities, for instance, being deaf and hard of hearing, or having some sensory visual differences. Okay. So now, what is this notion of scaffolding? So what do we mean with AI could scaffold them and help them? I'm going to explain that on the next slide now. Could we move on? Thank you, thanks. Okay, so the notion of scaffolding is a theoretical framework used in educational psychology to sort of describe dynamic transitional learning stages. Okay, so everybody in their life goes through learning all the time. As human beings, we're learning all the time. Okay, and there's always things that we can do by ourselves, and there's things that are out of our reach that we can't do at all. And then there's something in the middle, which a Russian psychologist called Vygotsky labeled as the zone of proximal development. And those are tasks that we can do, but only with the help of others. And this help is sort of metaphorically described as scaffolding, okay? And it is traditionally sort of considered or described as being provided by caregivers, educators, or peers. So in this project, we want to look at what happens if the scaffolding is provided by artificial intelligence. As we increasingly see, students have started using artificial intelligence, transcription systems, translation systems, ChatGPT, Grammarly, and so on. So, and we are sort of exploring how this may help or scaffold the experience at university by diverse students. Could we move on the slide, please? Okay, so here you see just an overview of our team. So we are quite a diverse bunch ourselves. All of us are in the psychology department, but we have a wide range of expertise represented, ranging from biological psychology to cognitive and educational, as well as bilingualism and linguistics. And we're really also going beyond the academic realm in the sense that we are also working with data scientists and web designers. Could we move on the slide, please? Cool. Okay, so this is sort of the outline of our project. This is how we're planning to proceed, and we're somewhat into this outline, okay? So the fall term 2024, this is what we call our exploratory phase. In the previous presentation, it was sort of called bottom up. This is where we really want to collect students' opinions and find out and get them to...
Thank you, Stefan.
And get them to share their experiences, okay? So the goal is to identify student needs, the type of diversities that we find, their current usage of AI, and whether they find their current usage of AI effective. How are we going to go about doing this? So, well, we are in fact already conducting interviews with students who self-identify as diverse. And for the purpose of outreach, we've also created a project resource website for promotion, participant recruitment, and sharing research findings and resources. Moving on from that, once we have sort of from the bottom up, still staying on the slide, but moving on from the first point, the next phase will be a little bit more sort of top down. It will be an experimental phase in which we will design based on what we found out from the interviews and also questionnaires and surveys we've conducted. We will sort of create some tailor-made experiments where we will assess the effects of AI usage on academic performance and well-being and stress levels. So how we will do that? How will we do that? So students will come in to take part in experiments, and the shape of these will be short sort of mock exams, and then we'll have groups of students who are allowed to use certain types of AI and others who are not allowed to use AI. And then we will assess performance at things such as reading comprehension, academic writing skills, and critical thinking. So we will assess their performance at these tasks, but also look at their sort of well-being. And this will be done by assessing their stress levels by measuring heart rates. Again, during this phase, we will also engage in outreach by further populating our website. And the idea is to sort of populate it with accessible public science style blogs and vlogs. And the last phase will be the dissemination and outreach phase, during which we will disseminate our findings. And this will be primarily done by an end-of-project workshop aimed at both educational professionals and also researchers. And also, ideally, we are aiming to create a sort of mini AI search tool created by a data scientist to search the website in an accessible manner, which will then also generate recommendations. So people will come to the website and they will get recommendations based on their issues that they type into a chat box. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so one of the questions we were meant to address in this presentation was, how will we contribute to creating inclusive impact? So first of all, the interviews by and in themselves are designed to sort of give a voice to diverse students. So not only will we find out about their needs, but also by giving them a voice, this is hoped to foster a sense of belonging and engagement. We will also have the project website for sharing accessible resources and experiences, and we'll organize a meet and greet event, bringing together diverse students to share experiences, and potentially this event could be like a platform to form communities of practice amongst the students. We'll also aim to make steps towards creating a comprehensive bespoke AI co-pilot for diverse students. And we will have the workshop, end of project workshop, which I already mentioned. Moving on to the next slide, please. Okay, so where are we now? So I've told you about the project outline. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit what we've achieved so far. So we've managed to create a team. We've recruited a research assistant, Charlotte Ward, who used to be a student with us and also works at NU London. And she's been very busy searching the literature for evidence of how AI is used in the context of diverse student populations. She's refined the materials. We're creating sort of the interview schedule, information sheet, questionnaire, survey, and she's also started to collect some pilot data. We also got the basic sort of website ready for participant recruitment and resource sharing. So there's a QR code on the flyer that takes participants directly to the website where they can sign up for participating in the project. And we've got a slightly new development where we have 2 additional students on board who will do their experiential internships with us. And their task will be to create accessible blogs for the website, summarizing insights from research in a public science style. So they will go out, research literature, and then summarize it in an accessible format, which will then translate into recommendations for people who come to see the website. Also, I've attended several conferences over the summer, and even though this was not for the purpose of this project, I made sure I went to all sort of related presentations and sort of collected information about similar research projects going on at the moment, and interesting things there were, for example, that some similar projects found that socioeconomic status affects the accessibility of AI for students, depending on whether they can afford resources that need to be paid for. So there's the possibility to invite some of these speakers to our CPD workshop. I think, am I being warned?
Just giving you a 1-minute warning.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move on to the next slide then. So I'm just going to very briefly show you some blurbs, some citations from the pilot interviews we've conducted with students. Here you see we asked students to describe their diversity and challenges. You see they mention a whole range of issues: concentration, deadline, ADHD, dyspraxia, and also that their needs are very bespoke. They sort of keep mentioning that their diversities are very personal to themselves. Okay. Moving on to the next slide, please. Then we asked them to describe their current usage of AI. And one of the re-emerging theme there is that they feel that they would benefit from a blueprint, from recommendations, from somebody who gives them a structure of how to constructively use this AI. Okay, so right now they're just sort of wildly using it, but they feel that they would benefit from some kind of guidance. So moving on to the next slide. The 2 themes we've identified so far is this importance of bespoke approaches, considering individual differences, and also the need for guidance. Okay, and this seems to be sort of where our project is sort of tapping into a space that may matter for students. Okay, moving on to the next slide, please. So this is the last slide. So how we plan to continue our work. So of course, we want to maintain the project website as a resource and platform to develop bespoke AI tools. And we want to take these tools further, potentially applying for future research to develop comprehensive AI tools in the form of an app. We'll be organizing the end of project workshop. And in terms of future research, we aim to sort of apply for future research involving concrete teaching interventions, and also edit a special issue on the topic in an academic journal, where we can then also publish our results and collect and get together insights from other studies, potentially to collect them in one place. Okay, so this is where we're at with the AI for Unidiversity project. Thank you for listening, and I'm more than happy to take questions.
While we wait for questions to pop up in the chat, would any of our presenters like to ask a question since they have mic access?
Hi,
Go
this
ahead,
is
Katie.
Katie. I haven't quite figured out how to ask this question, but how do you balance like the benefit of AI for learning with some of the downsides of, the fact that sometimes these algorithms just put out nonsense?
Okay, this is a very good point. I mean, one of the aims, in fact, of this project, and I didn't really mention it, is to sort of enhance AI literacy. In the broader sense that part of AI literacy is to not just use the tool, but to develop a critical awareness of exactly that, differentiating between when the output is useful and when it isn't. And that, I think, when the students in the interviews say they want a blueprint, they want some guidance, that sort of ability to critically reflect upon the output of these models would be definitely one of the aspects where we'd like to understand better how to sort of further AI literacy. And I should perhaps also mention that we don't just mean generative AI that sort of generates output, but also things such as translation, automatic translation, transcription, where we have a new situation where we no longer perhaps need to translate and transcribe from scratch, but where we have some sort of output that we then edit, okay, and that we critically engage with. So that's definitely one of the sort of areas we'd like to look at.
It's super cool. Thank you.
I'll ask my question.
Yes, please.
So Julia, thank you first of all for your presentation. This is obviously charting a new course involving AI. I had conversations with Executive Director Fayad from the Institute on Artificial Intelligence. And one of the things that we talked about was the biases that can emerge from AI. Dr. Joy Buolamwini, she was originally at MIT and served in the Biden administration to work on some of these issues around bias. And I'd be curious if that has come up in your discussions in developing this, and if so, what did you all think with regards to how you could address it?
I think this falls, thank you for asking that question. It's a very interesting topic, how in AI we could be replicating biases in society and even potentially make them stronger. So I think it falls into the same realm to some extent as the AI literacy, the ability to sort of critically reflect. To some extent, it could be an interesting even exercise for students to, as a discourse analysis, to sort of look at some output from AI and sort of do a discourse analysis of the biases and stereotypes that are replicated in it, and whether they differ from, as humans, we would be prepared to utter or write and so on. So I think that's a very important part of AI literacy. So I agree. It's very very interesting, and it goes beyond biases. These systems also in terms of language usage. Sort of because I'm come from a linguistics background, and I've thought very much about the way we use language. It comes from our input, right? And you know how these AI systems sometimes generate language in a certain way, right? It's phrased in a certain way, and then subconsciously as humans we sort of like may start to actually adopt the jargon of AI if we are exposed to lots of AI. And likewise, this would be the same case for biases, right? So it is this sort of ability, I suppose, that we'd like to train in students to decentralize, to critically reflect upon the input. Is very important, and it's sort of like in this sense, the AI literacy is a derivative of media competence and media literacy, right? Because when we are exposed to media, we are exposed to similar phenomena, and ideally we'd like to sort of like train critical thinking, which involves sort of critically reflecting upon that.
One of the things that Dr. Fayad did talk about too was the large language modules tend to have more problems than the small language modules. And I'd be curious if you thought about creating a smaller language module for the work that you are looking to do.
Okay, so one of the things we've actually thought about is to do like a mini AI tool. So, and the idea was that if we manage to populate the website with a lot of content, relevant research articles that have, however, been selected by us. Okay, so that are articles that are valid, that have been critically selected, and also the sort of summary blocks that then when individuals visit the resource website, there'd be like a chat box and they put in something about their particular issue or recommendation that they'd like to find out about. And so then the search tool would sort of do a mini search, not of the entire World Wide Web, but only of the content that we've sort of, let's say, censored, sort of like that has undergone sort of scrutiny in a way, and search for recommendations just within that forum. So that was actually one of the intended outcomes. So yes, I mean, to create a whole large language model, like in the style of ChatGPT, I think then we would need a much larger scale sort of like project. But we have been thinking of sort of laying the ground for that. So I think we've identified now, we've worked with a data scientist and we've identified it's realistic to do the mini search tool in the website. That's realistic, but then going beyond that, we can only sort of lay the foundation stones. We can only sort of do things that would inform the creation of such a small large language model. Because that would be a very big job. Even if it's a small one.
Right.
So we have a question. I'm sorry, Richard. We have a question in the Q&A from Michelle Long. Is your research currently limited specifically to NU London students, or is it open to students outside of the university?
So definitely within the global network. And I think, and the idea was to start, of course, participant recruitment at NU, but there's no reason we've decided at the moment why we wouldn't let students from other universities take part as well. So we haven't really, we're still sort of like getting everything ready, the flyers, the QR code, the website, the information sheets and consent form. So that'll be ready in the next week or two. So we haven't really proactively gone out and promoted participation yet. But once everything will be ready in a week or two, yes, the idea was to make it available, participation open to students from other universities.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Lauderhouse from the Department of Marine and Environmental Sciences, and I'm excited to tell you about our interdisciplinary lab meeting program. Next. So a lot of research has shown that there's a hidden curriculum and it kind of varies from field to field. And that's the idea behind that is it's the knowledge people kind of need to navigate the field and advance their careers. And so students need access to professional support networks to develop a knowledge and understanding of this. But faculty are busy. We have a lot of commitments and limited time to devote to mentoring students who are outside of our labs. And so the solution that we're proposing and implementing in this program are to invite students to meetings that faculties are already having on a regular basis with their lab. Next. So a bit of background is that I was running a research coordination network for evolution in the ocean. And in the middle of running this network, COVID-19 hit us. And we wanted to come up with like a new, a novel way to connect people during the pandemic and bring new young people into our network who are excited to build their professional networks. Next. So we created this lab meeting program during the pandemic for this sort of like narrow disciplinary group. And we provided training to undergraduate and graduate students, who I'm going to call the mentees, by giving them and matching them with labs who shared their research interests. And then in each lab, there was a designated mentor who was the specific person, the contact person for that mentee. But the mentees got to interact with the whole labs during the pandemic when lab meetings were online. And the program was extremely successful. So we continued to run it for multiple years. I think 3 or 4 years we were able to run it. And we developed a lot of data to show how successful this program was. Next. So I just want to share a little bit of that data with you that we've published to just sort of demonstrate that this kind of idea is really powerful. This kind of program is really powerful, and we're excited to bring it now to Northeastern. So we were able to show that the program increased racial diversity and diversity in sexual orientation for the mentees relative to the mentors. So we should show it increased diversity in our network. Next. We were also able to show the kinds of areas that were addressed in lab meetings were relevant to developing knowledge of the hidden curriculum. And so mentees were able to learn new techniques about a different field or a different species or experimental design. They were also able to learn things about, like, how do you present results in this field? How do you discuss manuscripts, grant applications, graduate school applications, etc. Next. And we also were able to ask the mentors, like, how did your labs benefit from having an additional person join your lab meetings? And we found that not only did the mentees benefit, but the lab groups also benefit, and the mentors benefited from having the mentees join their lab meetings. And so the graph on the bottom left shows that mentees contributed knowledge of a different habitat or system, offered novel perspectives on discussions that were happening in the lab meetings, and sometimes new techniques or methods. And mentors generally strongly agreed, as shown in the bottom right, that the lab benefited from the mentees. Next. And one of the really great benefits of this program is because mentors are already having lab meetings, it's just really the invitation of an additional person to join those meetings. And so it is a big bang for the buck in terms of the mentee gets a lot of extra time working with a lab, developing their professional network. Well, this is not a lot of extra time for the busy professors who are acting as mentors over the course of an 8-month academic year. Next. So with this amazing team, I'm excited to bring this program now to Northeastern, and we're running it this year for the first time with funding from the I3. Sanjeev and Rochelle are both in the College of Science Dean's Office. Jennifer Love is in the College of Engineering, Dugan Center for STEM Education, and Sarah Swope is an associate professor in Oakland. And we're really trying to make connections across the global network with this program. Next. And so far to date, we have prepared the recruitment materials and a web page. We advertised the program at the beginning of the semester, invited mentors. We have 32 positions across 17 labs in the College of Science and College of Engineering serving as mentors right now. And we had over 50 student applications for these 30 positions. We just completed our matches, and so Rochelle is in the process of sending out those mentor-mentee emails right now. And over the course of running the program, we're also going to offer some workshops for the students, including a workshop on a CV, the difference between a CV and a resume, and a grant writing workshop in the spring to try to stimulate some peak some peak proposals to continue that students' work or start research in the lab. And we'll be collecting some survey data at the very end to assess how the program is going. For our student applications, I'm excited to report that a third of them are NUIN students, and we have made matches for students who are in Dublin, Glasgow, Greece, Oakland, and Spain. So I think in the spirit of the global Northeastern network, we're really trying to demonstrate this as a program that can make those connections without a lot of extra time commitment. Next. So this is an overview of our website. If you want to learn more, you can just Google this. It's on the College of Science website, and it goes into more information about the program, as well as information about the research that we've done previously running this program on a national scale. Next. Oh, that was it. Yeah, so in terms of, I just wanted to also mention that in terms of sustainability, we're working with the Office and Corporate Foundation Relations to find some funding. One thing I forgot to mention is that we've shown that having some stipends available for the mentees is really helpful in from their perspective in completing the program. And so all of our funds go to mentee stipends. And so to continue the program, we're looking for funding to provide those mentee stipends for multiple years. But nevertheless, the program is scalable, and it can scale up to as many labs in Northeastern that would like to participate. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to take your questions.
If it's okay for me to just add something quickly, there are some programs in the College of Engineering, like Uplift, and there are programs in the College of Science, like the Dean's Undergraduate Research Scholars, and they all work together and build upon each other to create an ecosystem to enable more undergrads to be involved in research.
Thanks, Rochelle.
Richard, you have a question?
Thank you all so much for your presentation and the work that you're doing. I know, having overseen mentoring programs, how challenging it can be at times. And you answered my question to some degree. I know that when mentoring programs start out, there really is a lot of intensity and engagement. But I'd be curious, in addition to the funding for the mentees, how you sustain the engagement over time. I know that it tends to fade, the further you get away from when it's initially started. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, do you mean over the course of an academic year?
Yeah.
Which is what we're aiming for. Yeah, so that's where the stipends for the mentees do really come into play. That promise of a few $100s, at the end of the academic year does help them get over the hump when they're like faced with their final exams, and they're thinking like, oh, I need to attend one more meeting to get the stipend.
Yeah.
And you know, with respect to the mentors, they're having these regular lab meetings anyway from week to week with their labs, and those are things that are ongoing. And so we haven't seen, at least with the time I ran it previously, a lot of attrition due to these mechanisms that we were already kind of in place. But we'll see how it goes across colleges at Northeastern.
Now, do you find challenges in trying to get the faculty to be mentors?
We did get 17 labs sign up, and some labs decided to take on 2 students, some labs decided to take on 1. But we did not get as many labs or positions, I should say, across labs as we did applicants. And you know, some faculty are like, oh, I'm on sabbatical this year, I'd be happy to do it next year. You know, there's some of that going on. But I think it's always challenging, but this is in some ways less challenging for faculty because we're trying to sell this as a program where you're just inviting somebody extra to like meet your lab and hang out when you have lab meetings every week. And so we're really trying to sell this as a program that is a low bar for faculty, but like a big payoff for the students who they invite to their labs.
Great.
Thank you.
Well done.
Julia, a question?
Yeah, quick question about how interdisciplinary is the approach? Like, could students from any discipline be sort of menteed in any lab?
Yeah, so we let the students, we recruit the mentors first, and then we let the students pick which mentors they would like to work with. And so I have to look and see how many of them are actually across college, but that potential is definitely there. If a student in engineering, you know, was really excited about somebody's research in psychology, like we could totally make that match for them. So it's as just interdisciplinary as the students who are requesting mentors want it to be. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
There are no questions in the Q&A at this time.
Awesome. All right,
Thank you
so much.
And good luck continuing.
A question has just been added to the chat, and I believe we do have time to take that question if you want to, Lisa.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope I say this name correctly. Adrielle Antoine. Hello, I may have missed this, but what metrics, data points will you be using to determine a successful program? How will you know if students are making the most out of this opportunity and ensuring all parties involved are equitably contributing?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that, because we do want the students to get the most out of this. And we also want the host labs to get the most out of this as well. And we want to make sure the students feel included and that their contributions are welcome in the host labs. So we do require the faculty to read and agree to our expectations for mentors, to try to kind of set the bar for what we expect of them as mentors at the beginning before they even sign up for the program. And in terms of metrics, you know, we haven't put together the surveys yet, but I do have previous surveys that I showed you in the publication that we put out from running the program nationally on in that research coordination network. And so we'll be using that survey as a starting point for the survey that we'll use for Northeastern. Thank you.
Okay, hello. We are newly rooted. My name is Ashley Chawaya.
And my name is Naomi Barant.
And we can get started. So next slide, please. First, we wanted to thank everybody for coming. Thank you to the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for all of your support. We're so excited to show you all the things we've done so far. So my name is Ashley Chawaya. I am a third-year psychology and data science student. I'm currently working in the Sherman Venture Center as my co-op, and I'm from Randolph, Massachusetts. I was previously a hair store manager, and now I'm an entrepreneur, and that was my little bio.
Yes, and my name is Naomi Brant. I am Ashley's co-founder. I'm also a third year at Northeastern, and my major is finance and communication studies. And I'm also completing my first co-op experience at Northeastern Sherman Venture Center for Engineering and Entrepreneurship. And I'm also a native to the Boston area and a previous hairstylist of 5 years, which is where our expertise and interest in the hair and beauty industry kind of both arised. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so Newly Rooted is a beauty supply venture aiming to provide students of color with curly, coily, and kinky hair the essential self-care products they need to feel confident each day. My co-founder and I conceptualized the idea for this venture our freshman year at Northeastern when we identified the increasingly high need students of color faced in finding accessible and convenient beauty and hair products. And as Black women ourselves, we recognize how for most people of color, our professionalism is perceived first by how we present ourselves. And in a university setting where students like ourselves are often going on their first professional experiences through internships and through co-ops, we find it imperative that these hair and beauty and cosmetic products are conveniently accessible for all students on campus. We can go to the next slide.
So one of the biggest challenges, like Naomi had mentioned, that students with curly, coily, or kinky hair are facing is difficulty in finding appropriate products on or nearby campus. We know that for students with these types of hair types, proper products are not just a luxury, but are a necessity for hair health and self-confidence. Newly Rooted addresses these issues head-on by providing convenient access to high-quality products that cater to specifically curly and textured hair. Newly Rooted provides the barriers that students often face, such as long commutes to specialty stores or ordering products online like Amazon and waiting for days to delivery. A lot of college students want their things very immediately and very quickly, so our goal is to make sure self-care is very easy, very accessible, and very stress-free to make sure all students feel very supported in their personal grooming and wellness journeys. Next slide, please.
Okay, so for our progress thus far, as we said, we began our co-op at the Sherman Venture Center, which has been very important for us as full-time students and as students with a lot of extracurriculars. Being able to work full-time on our venture has allowed us to continue to work on the expansion and fully dedicate to growing ourselves as entrepreneurs through this venture. And here we've gotten our LLC. We've been able to build a website and have convenient and consistent pop-up shops and create pickup options for students to be able to get their hair care needs. We've also began developing a strong social media presence through our social media platforms on Instagram and on TikTok, where we've been able to establish a brand identity that students can relate to, and that has been able to build a community surrounding Newly Rooted that students can identify with and continue to go to for all of their hair care needs.
So also with establishing our business and getting our LLC, we've been in direct communication with Northeastern's business services to make sure that we can genuinely get our vending machine on campus and operate well between the two business entities. We have gotten our first vending machine and all of our product inventory with the support of the I3 Fund, which was very helpful. So now we have all the things to launch our machine.
Yes, and as we've said, our goal is to make Newly Rooted a permanent fixture on campus through a vending machine in a high traffic campus location. And before we do this, we want to make sure that we have ample research that we know that the products that we have are what students definitely need and the products that students need most. So we're doing this by having pop-up shops and pickups and doing consistent product sampling and having ways where we can get customer feedback and be able to make sure that the products that we have are representative of what's most needed. And through these initiatives, we've been able to engage our market by participating in Black student organization tabling, especially in the beginning of the school year when students were first coming onto campus. We wanted to make sure that students, when they're looking for their hair and beauty products, they know to look for Newly Rooted, and that they know that Newly Rooted is a place on campus and a place in their community that they can look towards for any beauty care necessities that they need. We also tabled at Northeastern's Summer Bridge, which is an opportunity for freshman students to come together and to meet each other and also be able to build a sense of community at Northeastern. And when the students first came to campus, we wanted to make sure that they understood that Newly Rooted is a place here in our community that they can look towards for these products and that they can rely on for any essentials that they need. And we've also done this by collaborating with organizations on campus, such as our Black Student Association, and by making sure that students from these other organizations can come to Newly Rooted as well. And by hosting these pop-up shops on campus, we've been able to sell our products while we wait for our vending machine to be able to launch, so that we can continue to gain market feedback and get market research on what products are most needed, so that when we do launch our vending machine, we have the most needed products.
Next slide, please. So plans for the rest of our funding period, we are continuously having pop-up shops until we can officially launch our machine. So basically, we've been having our pop-up shops every Thursday to serve as both an opportunity for students to get the products that they need very reliably every single Thursday. They know where to go, but also as market research to ensure we have the right products for all students and making sure that we can cater to them as much as possible. Also, in the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we want to open up a lot of different areas and spaces for students of color to see that they can be represented. We are one of the first co-ops that are both from different but different colleges on campus. We want to make sure that students of color can also come to the Sherman Center and see that this entrepreneurship is something that they can do. So we host our pop-up shops in different locations, such as the Sherman Center, the Funnel Lab, which is the classroom for first generation undocumented low-income students, so all students can feel very, just have a sense of belonging in many different spaces on campus. So we have our weekly pop-up shops to provide consistency for students. And as the semester closes, we're trying to connect with as many students of color organizations, such as the Black Student Association, the Black Business Student Association, to make sure that when they have their pop-up shops, when they have their Christmas gift things, that we can incorporate Newly Rooted into all of those things. And make sure that we're staying visible and meeting the immediate needs of students while also generating buzz for the vending machine launch. And that has served us well, as over the past month, we've gotten a total of 466 followers on our Instagram, as well as 12,000 views towards our profile in general. So there's a lot of buzz and positive feedback that we're hearing throughout our launch and throughout the growth of Newly Rooted. Next slide, please.
Okay, so for sustainability, so we want to continue to build our venture, and with the reduced startup costs from the Inclusive Impact Innovation Fund, this has been very helpful. And this has been a pivotal resource for us in terms of lowering our initial startup costs. And we've been able to focus on scaling Newly Rooted with more flexibility and a solid financial foundation. And our goal is to reinvest into marketing, expanding our vending machine locations throughout different locations within Northeastern's ecosystem, and enhancing our customer experience to strengthen both our brand visibility and identity. And this fund has also given us the room to test new ideas that we've had both suggested to us and that we've had of our own. We've been able to adapt to the various challenges that we've faced, and we've been able to refine our offerings based on customer feedback to make sure we have what's most necessary. And as we continue to grow, we want to make sure that we're continuing to apply to more grant and entrepreneurial programs within Northeastern's ecosystem and within the Boston community. So far in our entrepreneurial journey, the programs that we've been in, both through Northeastern's Entrepreneurial Club and the Husky Startup Challenge, through IDEA, our Interdisciplinary Entrepreneurial Accelerator, as well as in the Sherman Venture Center and in the I3 Fund, have all been very pivotal in growing us as entrepreneurs and in growing our venture. And so we want to make sure that as we continue to grow, we're continuing to pour in additional opportunities for learning and for growth and as entrepreneurs, so that Newly Rooted is most successful. And these opportunities would not only provide us with financial resources, but also access to expert guidance, networking, and opportunities for additional exposure. And these opportunities will also allow us to take Newly Rooted to the next level. And While we do these things, we want to make sure that we have strong foundations for all administrative systems for which our venture can grow and build. And we understand that growth is only sustainable with the right internal systems in place. So we're prioritizing having a strong administrative framework that can be replicated and enhanced as we continue to grow. And this includes streamlining our supply chain, managing our inventory effectively, and creating efficient accounting and operational processes. And all these systems help us to scale our business more smoothly and be able to effectively include our team into the expansion of Newly Rooted. And these also help us prepare for future challenges as we expand. And also, what's very important to us is growing a community of mentors, advisors, and advocates who champion for our holistic growth as women, students, and entrepreneurs. In our entrepreneurial journey so far, the people and offices who have been in our corner have been instrumental to our growth and making this venture viable to be utilized by our community. And as young women and as students, we continue to seek mentors who understand the unique challenges that we face and who support us in balancing our academics, our business, and our personal growth. And with this continued network of strong support systems, we hope to continue to grow and confidently make a lasting impact in our community and on our campus through Newly Rooted. And with that, we'd like to open the floor for any questions. Yes,
Richard?
Mr. Richard O'Brien.
Oh, first of all, congratulations, Ashley and Naomi. I was visiting our Oakland campus this past weekend, and somehow the subject came up about student entrepreneurs. And so I had mentioned you all in the projects that you're working on, and everybody had seen the Northeastern Global News story about what it is that you're doing. But what I found interesting in the conversation was they said, oh, we can't wait till they put their vending machines in airports, because they said just before they get on a plane, they always realize, I forgot to bring, some of my hair care products, or they get to their destination and realize, man, I need to get some more. And so I say all that to say you all are on a path, I think, for blazing a trail for something like this. And I commend you on the work that you are doing. And the question that I have for you is, and you talked a little bit about scaling it, but I would be curious if you all have thought about the bigger scale, like, airports and locations where folks would really be interested in the convenience that your type of machine would provide.
Yes, we definitely have thought about the expansion of Newly Rooted past the Boston area, and we've thought a lot about the need for accessible products in a lot of different areas. And we know that here in Northeastern, students often commute like 30 minutes to find products, but in other areas that commute is even longer, and in airports especially, that's even something that's been in our consideration. With where we are right now, we want to work on establishing our vending machine at Northeastern as our minimal viable product. So as we continue to expand, we have this vending machine as the one we can replicate. And we've looked towards airports. One challenge that we kind of faced when we were looking at expanding in airports was that some vending machines already have exclusivity to airports, like the Kylie Cosmetics has exclusivity to some cosmetic brands. So with that, we'd have to kind of navigate with our legal support systems to make sure that the products that we have provided in there don't conflict with the exclusivities that are already in place there. So those are kind of the what we've been navigating so far as we think about the expansion.
Now, have you thought about, sometimes folks go into ventures with an exit plan of being bought out by a larger company that, deals in the same types of products. Have you explored that as a possibility? So to be able to get your machine and your product and your brand into the larger network of partnering with one of the larger companies with regards to hair care products?
Definitely something we thought about. We think we definitely want to make sure that we have a strong impact first at Northeastern and the Boston colleges at first, before we think about being bought out by other larger companies, especially just because it's our hometown, our home city, home state. This is very personal to us as well. So we think that we definitely want to see the longevity of Newly Rooted to begin with. At least while we're still students at Northeastern. Yeah.
And I can add on to that as well. As students and we're only in our third year and possibly a 4 or 5 year track, we know that once we graduate, we don't know what our schedules will look like, where we'll end up. And having a vending machine is a very hands-on business where you have to be in person to restock. So as we expand, we think about how our team can be implemented in that process of the restocking, so that if we're in another location, they can also be involved in that. And also thinking about, as we go into the professional setting and with the careers that we may take on in the future, how that may look while also managing this entrepreneurial endeavor. And I think a factor that we also consider is how other Black-owned businesses have been impacted by the buyout almost of their business. And I know that for a lot of hair care businesses specifically, such as Mielle and Shea Moisture, their brands have been started by young Black women and have grown and expanded and had gained a lot of community engagement by the Black community. And in them being bought out by people who aren't necessarily the target audience of the products that are being used, a lot of the times the formulas or the goal of and the mission of the brands have changed a little bit. So we know that with Newly Rooted, we want to stay true to why we began and why the need that our students in the community that we're in face. And so we kind of think about all of these factors as we think about the expansion of Newly Rooted and keeping it as a Black-owned, women-owned business and brand.
Good answer.
It is. And thank you. I have an add-on question, I believe, from Madison Haywood here. Excellent work. I think this is great. This is a great idea that many students will benefit from. How will you sustain the operations upon your graduation?
Okay, so as we think about the sustainability of our operations when we graduate, we think largely, as Ashley and I are Boston natives, there is a chance that we stay in the Boston area. We don't know where we'll end up, but we know that while we're in the Boston area, we'll definitely be able to be hands-on with the operations. But even past, as we think about the legacy of Newly Rooted and being here and creating a legacy here at Northeastern and both in the Boston community of providing products for students, even past while we're in the Boston area, we want to make sure that we have a team who understands what Newly Rooted stands for and understands how they can contribute to the growth of Newly Rooted. So we want to do this by having brand ambassadors who would refill the machines. And with this, they'd be able to get samplings of products themselves so that they can try out products, recommend them to their friends, and have a sense of alignment and kind of like they feel that we are appreciative of the work that they do for us as well. And then also in refilling the machines and having kind of a strong relationship with them and trust of that for that as well.
And then to answer one of the questions earlier, we determine the success of Newly Rooted through a combination of different quantitative and qualitative metrics. Obviously, first, as a business, we have our regular sales data that we have from our different modes of payments. We track our product sales to measure our demand and identify what items are popular. During our pop-up shops, we also have a whiteboard where people can draw their feelings and say what products they really wanted to have there, so that we can see immediately what things people really wanted. So that immediate and direct customer feedback is also very helpful. We also have surveys and direct communication, different modes of direct communication. So we have a broadcast channel on our Instagram where students can talk about, we ask them a question and students can engage with us there. We put surveys on our Instagram stories so students can say, okay, what shampoo would you want, shampoo or Mielle? Shea Moisture or Mielle, and we can gauge based off of that what they like. Most of our engagement at our pop-up shops based off of the feedback that we see on our insights on Instagram as well, versus how many times other organizations are posting them, reposting them, what emails, they're getting shouted out in the way different Northeastern clubs and organizations are supporting us. We can engage and see a bunch of different engagement like information through that, as well as just what kind of demographics, what kind of schools are seeing us. We're recently been getting a lot of followers from Boston University, so trying to see like what is bringing them towards us, how we can engage with them. Those are all different ways that we kind of determine our success.
Thank you so much. On that note, I'll pass it back to Richard O'Brien to close us out. You're muted.
Sorry. Oh, Handel's had his hand up. Did you want to ask a question, Handel?
No, my apologies. Everyone did great. I was going to react and give everyone a clap. My apologies.
Yeah, I want to thank all of our presenters. You all did a fantastic job, and all of you all are in the line in the spirit of what this initiative is all about in not only having an impact, but an inclusive impact. And so we want to applaud you all for all that you all have done and for all that you will do with the work that you're doing. I want to thank those who attended to be here today and hear about these wonderful projects that folks are working on. And we look forward to continuing to support you in your work and to spur additional ideas and collaborations. So stay tuned for the announcement in January for the next round of I3 applications. And once again, on behalf of the staff from the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, thank you and congratulations. Job well done, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you to the diversity and equity staff, Nikki, and all the folks that really helped make this happen too. I think they deserve a shout out too.
Yep, well done, Nikki and everybody on the team. Well done.